Hello Internet and welcome back to the next part in this series. So in the last video what we did was we used Dataverse formula columns to extract some information from a parent record for a calculation and do some simple calculations in the same table row as well for each job. So to make sure that the job is all summing up nicely. And now what we're going to do is we're going to implement some Power Automate to essentially get the outcome that's on your screen now. So we're inside a work order. You can see the total, the invoice total is £474.10, and this work order has a series of different jobs, and each of those job rows from the previous video we've got how many hours it took, so therefore 5 times 30 is the time cost, and we've also got the part cost driven by the engine in the parts table to give us a total cost for that particular job. And then what we need to do is with Power Automate, we sum all these total cost jobs and insert it into the invoice total in the work order table. So there are different ways to do this. This whole project is about teaching you the basics, teaching you how to understand how all the Power Platform integrates together. There are things called like roll-up fields, although they tend to only trigger kind of every hour, so refreshing the database every hour, and they're great for some use cases, but in most cases you want to see that instant change. So yes, you could go pro code and write some C# that triggers the roll-up calculation job, but again that's a little bit more pro code than what we'd like at the moment. So we're going to use Power Automate. So what we're going to do is I'm just going to show you 2 different ways you can achieve this in Power Automate. Now I've already built the flow, but essentially all I did just to show you was I came to my solution. Remember, always build inside a solution, and I came to Cloud Flows, new automation, Cloud Flow Automated, and I gave it a name, and then essentially I landed on the Power Automate screen where you can tailor your flow. So the main thing I did was, excuse the name, it's not deleted, I changed that, and I'll tell you why in a second. But the change type is added or modified. So if a row gets added or modified in the jobs table in the scope of the entire organization, then I want this flow to run, and I want it to run only based on the total cost, which is a formula column anyway. So if anything gets updated that affects the total cost, it's going to trigger this flow automatically. The compose feature, if you're not used to it, is just a way to extract some information from what's being returned from the previous flow, so you can kind of ignore that for now, but we'll see it in testing in a minute. And these 2 branches are the 2 different ways. Now the preferred way, which I would say most beginners at least use, is a loop where you would initialize a variable. So it's a float, so essentially decimal with a value of 0. You would get all the jobs related to the work order. So you can see I've included a work order filter in here using the work order value from the trigger itself, because that's got access to the context of the record. And then for each of those, I have iterated through them and added the total cost from the job row to my total variable. And that's it. And then essentially here you would have your update row, which I've put on the other branch to show you. But that is one way of doing it. It's a little bit laborious and time consuming, and probably most importantly, it's slower to run than this way, where if you're happy to expand into the world of XML, it's not particularly complicated. It does speed things up a little bit and simplifies how many blocks of Power Automate low code you have on your screen. So this is the alternative. So it's still a list rows function, so it's exactly the same. So to find that, you would add an action and you type in list rows, and it's there, list rows Microsoft Dataverse. Okay, so excuse they've flipped sides now, but we're on the right hand side now. So it's exactly the same. So I'll expand both so you can see. So we're filtering by the work order value. That's great. That's what we want. And then we've got this little snippet of XML query. So we're aggregating true. So yeah, we want to aggregate. What type of aggregation do we want? Well, we want to sum. You can change that to average or other aggregating methods if you wish. We're going to give it an alias, and that is just how we access it in the object that it returns. But essentially we're going for the total cost. So we're aggregating the total cost column in the jobs table where the work order value is equal to the work order value of which triggered this. And then we compose. That's just a more of a sanity check. You don't need that in at all. Although in this case I have used the output of that compose just to show you. And here we're just updating the work orders where the row ID is the trigger work order number, so that's easy. And the invoice total is, now this might look a little bit confusing, so it's the first element, the first array element of the outputs of compose 2, and we're extracting the work order total. So if you remember, the work order total was the alias that we gave in the XML here. So that's the work order total there. And we're grabbing the first because actually the output of this when using fetch XML is always an array, a list essentially, and we want to grab the first unit. There's only one in this because we're aggregating, so there's only one object, which you'll see in a second, and that's how we do it. So let's put this into test mode. We'll test it manually this time. Just give that a second. Okay, and we'll come back here. So what we're going to do, we've got Big Bob, and we're going to create a new work order. So we'll find Bob's vehicle, which is now pre-filtered for Bob, give it a rubbish description, click save, and now we can add some jobs into the work order. So we'll find a part, we'll look for, let's say engine, put the engine in, so it's going to take us 4 hours to replace this engine, save. Okay, so now that flow should be triggering. Now, because it's all Power Automate, it's not always absolutely immediate. It sometimes takes a few seconds, but if we go back, you see the invoice total has not yet run. So if we go to our work order sum jobs, you can see that's not run yet either. So if we could try a refresh, it's still not run. It should have run. Okay, let's try and add a new job. This time we'll look for, we'll say the O-ring is going to take us 0.2 hours. Save. I think that's probably going to make it run, and I think I know why. We shall see. Okay, something's not going right, which is fine. So I'm just going to go back into the Cloudflow and just see if we've got any warnings. Sometimes that happens. I have no warnings. It all looks good. Sometimes this is the joy of Power Automate. So let's just go back in and check what's going on. So when a flow is added or modified, yes, in jobs, organization, total cost. Yep, so that should be working. Save. Just try and run it automatically with an old trigger. Just make sure that runs okay. Yep, so that worked fine. So what I will do is I'll just show you this for now, and then we'll try and get it to run on the fly. So this is the one I wanted to show you mostly. So we aggregate, and there's our query, and the output is an array, but it's got one object in it, and it's this work order total that we're extracting out, and then we save it to the field in the work order. And this is essentially looping through and incrementing by the value of each one each time. So 245, 6.1, adding them together, and then just assigning that to an object output when it's done. So that's how it works. Now I'm interested to see why it's not ran. So let's try it again. So it looks like it did run. It was just slow because we've got 1 minute and 58 seconds to go. So let's just try manually again. At this point, I would like to say we are in a developer environment, so it's not got quite the power and attentiveness, I guess, as a production environment, but we shall try this again and hopefully get it to work. So let's just double check. So our invoice total is currently £251.10. I'm going to create a new job. We'll look for a part. We'll call it battery this time. 45 hours. No, that's ridiculous. 4 hours. Okay, £251.10. So it's still not running. There we go, it's running now. So now if I come back in here and I refresh that, you can see it's gone up to £470.10. So that's how it works. I appreciate you've just had to wait around and figure out what's going on. Sometimes that does happen, Power Automate. I think it's a developer's worst nightmare when you're trying to develop something and it's slow to run during testing, but it does work. And again, it is probably just a feature of a development environment. Everything speeds up and is a little bit more performant in a production environment. So there we go. So that's how we do it. And what I did do beyond the previous video, which I haven't included in this video, if you wanted to play a bit of catch up, is I've just updated the jobs view, the primary jobs view. So we've got hours, part, cost, etc. in there. And additionally, what I've done is I've just added the hours into the main job table form as well, if you wanted to catch up. So yeah, hopefully that helps. So there's the two different ways to use list rows in Dataverse. I would highly recommend getting into the depths of XML to make things quicker. And awesome, I think we're kind of ready to start looking at a Canvas app and get that going. So that's exciting for the next video. Okay, thanks for watching, guys, and please like, subscribe, all that good stuff, and I look forward to seeing you soon. Thank you.